Welcome to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast. This is the podcast dedicated to people who want to speak more as a way to build their income and grow their business. Well, welcome everyone to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast. I'm your host, Jane Atkinson, and today we are talking to one of our industry's road warriors, Jason Hewlett. Welcome.
Hey, I'm thrilled to be a part of this. I love your podcast.
Oh, well, thank you so much. That means a lot to me that you're listening. You know, I know that we have a lot of mutual friends, and I'm so excited to kind of get to know you personally a little bit better, and for our listeners to really get a true sense of where you've come in this industry, because you've done some things that not a lot of people have done.
Well, yeah, it's been quite the journey, and I think everyone has their own story, and mine is just as unique as the next person, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Well, tell us about how you got your start.
Well, I began in the entertainment industry. I was on my way thinking I'm going to college. Next thing I know, I end up in Brazil as a missionary. So I was there for 2 years right out of high school, learned Portuguese, knocking doors, trying to teach people about what I believe and what could help their life. And next thing I know, I'm back home in Utah, and I ended up in Las Vegas quite quickly as a Ricky Martin impersonator.
Yeah, that's a natural transition.
A very natural.
From a missionary to a Ricky Martin impersonator.
Yeah, so it was quite the wild shift from where family and others thought that I would be. But I realized while I was in Brazil that I was unique worldwide rather than just the funny guy in my neighborhood growing up. And so that was important to discover that as a kid, that internationally I am different. And so becoming this, Las Vegas entertainer was really fascinating. I was impersonating someone else's voice. I had to look, sound, act like them. Even meeting the people afterwards, it wasn't really like, hey, give me your real name. They just thought, I'm meeting Ricky Martin, sign my chest. And you're like, I can't do that, but thank you. It's a bizarre life shift right after being married to my sweetheart, Tammy. And that began my career. And that was almost 20 years ago, Jane.
20 years ago. Okay, so how long did you do a show in Vegas for?
So I was with a company called Legends in Concert.
Okay.
And they have shows all over the world of impersonators. It's really the top of the top.
Yep.
For people wanting to impersonate someone else. And I worked for them as Ricky Martin for a little bit. And when Ricky's career started to fizzle out a little, I became Elton John.
Okay.
And so I did both characters in the same show. And people were shocked to find out I was the same guy because you couldn't tell from the stage. And then I realized that I was really good at not just these two characters. I had lots of other things I could do, from the Bee Gees to Michael Jackson to Stevie Wonder and et cetera, et cetera. So I put together a one-man show, and I left a posh gig in Vegas for I'm going to go out on my own with a one-man show career. And really, my goal was to create something that families could enjoy together and not be concerned about the content. Grandparents not having to hide their eyes when the wrong thing came on the stage. So I started a comedy show of music and impressions, and went out and did county fairs and beauty pageants and built that up into the next level, which was then cruise ships and school assemblies, and then all of a sudden I'm doing corporate events.
You say all of a sudden, but really, how many years are you talking about doing what you did? I think this is one of the toughest paths for people to take.
Yeah, when I say all of a sudden, I mean 10 or 15 years.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was all just kind of this big old mess of everything, and it was beautiful. And I was so excited that I would do freebies on a Monday and full fees on a Tuesday. It was a bizarre experience, and it really gave me some road warrior, mettle real quick. So I was averaging about 200 dates a year from I would say about 2003 until about 2013.
Oh my
And
goodness, 10 years of that. And you remained married in that time.
I did,
That's
yeah, and
impressive.
that's my wife. My wife, the reason for that, she's just so impressive. I was reflecting about her, especially over the recently having Mother's Day being
Mhm.
celebrated, and so just thinking about, my goodness, I'm so blessed to have a woman in my life that would be able to put up with this type of schedule. And we have 4 children. We had 4 under 5 years at the time,
Wow.
and now they're grown a little bit more, but you have to have a serious agreement that this is
Yes.
going to work. And
Yes, you
it doesn't
do.
always work. So we're
No,
blessed.
I would say that, and as a little side note, tell us about the sweet note that you wrote about your wife when you saw her at Target that day that went viral. Talk about that and just how crazy viral it went, too.
That was just a quick little um, happening as I'm racing to the airport. I went to Target to grab some manly things, like beard oil and sardines and beef jerky. And
Sardines. You were going to open them on the plane, right?
oh yeah, that's what I travel with. Try to keep people away. No, but as I'm racing through the Target at grocery store there, I saw a quick line with only 2 people in it, and I raced to the line, and there's a brunette and a blonde, and I saw the blonde, and I went, whoa, and then I realized it was Tammy. I didn't know my wife was there, and really all this blog was about was that we need to look at those that we see every single day in our lives. We need to look at them with fresh eyes to realize the light they are in our lives. And
Mm.
I just posted this sweet little posting just about seeing my wife, not really realizing it's her, and with the clickbait apparently that I cheated on my wife at Target with my wife. Let me explain. And it went crazy viral. Yeah, look, we've estimated around 100 million viewers so far because it was the headline in anywhere from China to Malaysia to India and all the way down to Africa, Brazil, all over the world.
That's
Pretty cool.
amazing. So,
Yeah.
if people want to read that, all they have to do is Google. Um,
Saw my wife at Target or
I saw my
cheated
wife
on
at
my wife.
Target. It will come up. I saw my wife at Target, or yeah. Anyway, I found it very, very quickly, and I thought it was adorable. And it really just speaks to who you are. And you're obviously a value-based speaker, which is why I'm just still shaking my head about the whole Vegas thing. It's just such a weird like combination there. Where do you live now, Jason?
Well, I grew up in Utah, and a pretty place called Park City, Utah, is where I grew
Beautiful.
up. It's a ski town, and
Yeah,
now we live in the valley, what's called the Salt Lake Valley, and
gorgeous.
we've lived here for almost 15 years. It's been a wonderful thing. But we really expected, my wife and I, that I would have a Las Vegas career. And in 2004, just very quickly after starting my own one-man show and racing around, I was offered a casino opportunity. And, sitting across the table from a hotel billionaire,
Yeah.
having your life about to change and all your dreams come true. And then they say, well, we do need you to just do what we say and sing what we tell you. And we're going to write it. We're going to manage you, and we'll be over your career from now on. When I realized there was no negotiating in that,
Yeah.
that's when all my career shifted real fast. And so a lot of people say when they've seen me, they say nice things like, why aren't you famous? And why haven't we heard of you before? And I just say, well, God had other plans for me. And I'm grateful that we stuck to that whole thing called the promise instead. And,
Mm.
and so that's where the promise came from.
I wondered if that was the where the brand was created from. So, tell us a little bit. So, it is your brand,
Mhm.
and tell us what's at the crux of the promise.
Well, the promise is simply just this concept that we've all made a promise to our audience as the performers that we are. So I use it, with all of the performing that I do. I'm not just
Right.
giving a lecture here. I'm saying, what's the performer's promise? They give 100%. They sing the hit. They do their signature moves that make them unique. And then the promise to our family, which is the people we work with or the people at home. Then, of course, the promise to the one, which is ourselves. And so really that's become a really powerful business message that a lot of people are not used to hearing. We're
Right.
so used to hearing about goals and other really important things, but I like to say, why set a goal when we can make a promise? And what kind of leaders are we? Are we goal makers and setters, or are we promise keepers?
Right.
And so what is your promise? That's what my whole brand has come to after a lot of work.
After a lot of work. So I suspect that who is attracted to you are companies who may share those same values, or potentially even companies who may need a little dose of those values. Is that
Well,
accurate?
that's fair. Yeah. And I'll tell you the truth of it, Jane. It's been very difficult of a sale.
Yeah.
There's a couple of reasons. First of all, promise is not a word that a lot of men are slinging around in corporate.
Right.
And it sounds like a Hallmark card, but at the same time, the promise is kind of ethereal. It's kind of something that they go, well, what's the big deal? We don't really need that, do we? It wasn't until we realized that becoming legendary leaders by keeping the promise became kind of that impetus for them to go, oh, we should consider this guy.
Okay,
Because yeah.
so you took this idea and then you got it even more streamlined and said it's about legendary leadership, and now people can understand it better. So one of the things that I talk about is it's not necessarily about the how, and for you the how is the promise. It's about the outcome, creating legendary leaders. And that needed to fall into place before people went, boom, okay, we get it. We understand what Jason does. How important has it been for you in your speaker path to pick a lane and say, I'm putting my stake in the ground here at leadership?
Oh, it's been the best thing, the smartest thing we've done in a long time. Because I really, in 2016, is when I really went for it as the speaker. I took entertainer guy off of my website. I pretty much went all in, which is kind of bizarre because that's my differentiating factor.
Right.
And so I felt that I had to make that jump to say, hey, guess what? I'm on this path now. And my old clients, I'm telling you, they have gone bonkers. Like, you've lost your mind. You're such a great entertainer. What is your deal?
Yeah.
So it's been a real hard shift, but picking that lane is essential, and it's been real ugly for us. I mean, even here we are on the Wealthy Speaker podcast, but I'm telling you, I have been a wealthy person my whole life because of my faith and family and so forth. But I'm telling you, we have not been a wealthy speaker this entire time, and financially, it's been a struggle. And the reason that it's important to share that to your listeners is that so many people often think they see someone like me on stage, go, wow, he has it all. Look at his family, look at his ability and so forth. That's nice. They think that. Truth of the matter is, when we make these gigantic shifts, we're jumping without a parachute.
Mm-hmm.
And jumping without the parachute is of the essence in order to fly. And I mean, I know that sounds corny, but it's real. And so picking the lane of leadership, it's been essential for me, for the audience to realize the definition of what I'm delivering. Because like for you, Jane, I know you're not just talking about the wealthiness of the speaker. I mean, I've listened to so many of your podcasts. They're about life balance and being great, with your soul, and also finance comes into play. But
Yeah,
we
it's
have
not
to
about
lead with something.
Yeah, it's not about the trappings necessarily. We do really believe in living the life that's perfect for you. And so if your perfect life looks one way and somebody else's looks a completely different way, like doing 200 dates a year, oh, that just feels, oof, that feels rough to me, like really, really rough. And that says to me that you have paid your dues, and that now when your family gets you to the degree that they get you your time and attention and just presence in their lives, it must be such a gift, such an amazing gift.
Well, the 200 dates thing did eventually have to end, and I was racing around doing every gig possible as a performer. And performers get paid quite different from most
Yes.
speakers. And
Yes.
so a $500 gig was exciting. An occasional 10,000 would come along, just depending on what it was. It wasn't until a couple of my heroes passed away from health issues as entertainers that I really stepped back and looked at what was happening to them and myself. My voice was starting to wear out. You can only go so long, so hard on planes and then performing outside with dust and at a county fair. And the next thing you know, you're coughing up blood because you just pushed through another show.
Wow.
So I had to make a big shift, and that entailed becoming a speaker using my voice properly rather than abusing it to death with all the voices of Led Zeppelin, Metallica, Guns N' Roses, impressions I was doing that beat it up. And so now I'm averaging, I'd say, between 50 and 60 dates a year
Hmm.
as a keynote
That's a nice
speaker.
number. That's a nice number. And at a healthy fee for leadership, are you seeing a nice light at the end of the tunnel now? I know you had to go through a few bumps to get here. Do you feel like you can see something?
I would say because of the help and instruction of a lot of people, from podcasts like yours that have so much help, to being a member of the National Speakers Association, having a circle of friends that would refer me, that's been
Hmm.
huge, as well as being a part of CMI with Karen Harris
Oh,
and her.
good. Okay, great.
Yeah,
You're in
so
good
these
hands with her.
I'm in incredible hands, and I have amazing people that have helped me to refine the entire process of this. And even last year, I hung out with Steven Shapiro, an incredible innovation speaker and thinker and dear friend, Hall of Famer. We went and hung out in Vegas in a hotel room for a couple of days. And with his analytical mind, he told
Yes.
me how I could fix my message. And with my entertaining mind, I told him how he could make his more entertaining. And I'm telling you, just those kind of things
That's
make
so.
all the difference.
It really does. And that's just something to say for, creating a community around you. For those of you who are out there doing it on the island by yourself, come on into the mainland. There's a lot of people here, not only at the National Speakers Association and our sister CAPS, Canadian Association of Professional Speakers, but also in groups like, I think you have a group, I have groups. There's lots of ways to come in off the island. Let's talk about what you do for speakers. You have a program that you offer?
Well, sure. I've gotten so many requests through the years from performers that are magicians and balloon artists, to singers and bands, to now speakers, keynote speakers, Hall of Famers asking, how have you done this? And so, yeah, we had to put together something because you can only go to so many free lunches, or one-on-one calls. And I'll always help anyone I can, but there's only so many hours in the day. So yeah, I put together a program called How to Make a Career from the Stage, and that's just a very simple thing where I talk through all the mindset and the message and the audience that you're interested in working with, and we just go through some of the very basic things within, what are you doing with your daily time?
Yeah.
How much money do you actually need to live? Because I get a lot of people that come to me with, making a huge career jump. I'm a sales guy. I do 5 to 10 presentations a year. I want to do what you do because it's so easy. And I go, okay,
Yeah.
well, I'll show you how easy it is,
Yeah.
and then
I'll show you how easy it is.
yeah.
I love that
So
you do that. That's fantastic. And we'll make sure we put something in the show notes, and I'll have you announce it here in a second. But let's talk about, I used to think that mindset was like 50% of the equation, and I've come to believe that mindset is 100% of the equation to making this work. Tell me your thoughts on that.
Oh, totally. Yeah, the mindset. I mean, when I teach that in my online course, if you will, the funny thing is that people are surprised to hear that I'm talking so much about mindset because they want nuts and bolts. You know, they think they
How
want just
to. Yep.
how to, hey, give me the sales script, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm just like, look, you have to start with, these cycles of showbiz. You have to understand that there's a lot going on between humility and pride, prospering and blessings, feeling ungrateful and then grateful. And then how do you work your ability to be alone on an island or I tell people to watch the movie Martian with Matt Damon,
Yeah.
how he actually realized that his fecal matter was going to keep him alive, and that's what this business is.
Oh wow! Okay, that might have to be the headline, Monica. With that, we're going to make sure we promote that one, Jason.
So a lot of people don't realize that this business is as hard as being trapped or left alone on
On
a
Mars.
Mars. Yeah, it is. And
Oh my
unfortunately, we
gosh.
think we can do it alone. We really can't. And so, yeah, I just talk about the mindset of getting to work, get the work done, sit down and make something happen, and then begin to craft your message, your ability of what you would speak for free and drive 10 hours one way in a snowstorm to deliver, and
Yeah.
that whole thing, and then find your audience and create it through social media and all the cool routes that we have now. But really, it's about
Beautiful.
getting on stage. So get
Beautiful.
on stage and be good.
Talk about the what's the URL for that? We'll put it in the show notes.
Well, it's an online training, and so it's just jhetraining.com, as in Jason Hewlett Entertainment training.com. So,
jhetraining.com. Okay, we'll put that in the show notes. Well, I'm really glad. I've talked to a few of my podcast guests about competition, right? And it used to be, a few years ago, I would have thought, oh, that might compete with my school. What am I going to do about that? How would what my thought was. I have completely done a 180 on the thought process. And I really do believe that any speaker who's been out there on the road as a road warrior has a message to give people. And, tell me what your take is on competition.
oh, competition is the best. I really feel that the people that are my competition have now become some of my dearest friends.
Yes.
Not only do they make me better, but they also become the people that refer me. It's really bizarre.
Yeah.
But I have this online training, and then you've got people like yourselves with the great books and all you do, to Lois Kramer, to David Averin's new sales stuff, to the keynote camps by
Yeah.
Mark Shamrock and Eric Chester. I mean, everybody's got
Yeah.
their thing, and I think what's neat about it is that we all have our spin on it. And if you take the gems from every single thing that you learn between NSA and CAPS and wherever you go, my goodness, there is so much knowledge of or a wealth of knowledge that you could glean. And unfortunately, some people just say, I'm going to buy just one program. This needs to be it. And I say,
Yeah.
man, I bought every program. I buy every book.
That's what
You
I
know?
figure. I figure people will get to me eventually. If it's not, sometime, I don't know when it'll be, but I'll be around for the next 20 years. I've been here for 30. I'll go another 20. So we'll see you at some point in the future. And that's how I feel like it too. And I'm really happy this year I'm making a more concerted effort to have the people that have other programs on the show, because I think that it is really important that people see what's out there and get ideas from other places. And hearing it from a road warrior is going to be very different than hearing it from me, who's actually been more of an agent for speakers. I come at things from a different angle, and I love that. So you just have so much. Let's when it comes to the performance, what do you think in the leadership talk that you're doing? And let's set the entertainment part aside. I know that's kind of your differentiator, but let's set that aside. What is it you think that you do that other people might not do, that the Steve Shapiros that you might have helped him with? What did you work on in that Vegas show, in that Vegas hotel room? What is it that a lot of speakers might need a little dose of?
Okay, that's a great question. I love your questions, by the way. You're such a great interviewer.
Thank you.
So here's what I have found, it seems. You see, I lead with this entertainment piece, right? And that opens the heart to learning. Yeah.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
I completely knock them out with something that Brene Brown has obviously become the coin of, which is the vulnerability piece. For me to be a man that's willing to go to a vulnerable place, and a man who, it looks fairly manly and can do some over the top funny things, and then all of a sudden I'm making you cry about my failings as a leader in the home, as a father. Next thing I know, these leaders that's what they're walking away with. Like, oh my gosh, I thought you were just going to be funny, but now I realize what my promise needs to be in the home. And for them to like get that one very simple basic message about being a vulnerable, powerful leader in the home, that makes all the difference in their leadership at work. So often we go at it, they will only pay for it if it helps them at work.
That's right.
But they don't realize they're actually buying my ability to help them realize they're failing at home. And, no success in life can compensate for failure in the home, is what a man named David O. McKay said. And that is true. And I don't think I'll ever get paid for that, but that is what they take away. And that's exciting for me. So when Stephen and I sat down in the hotel room and worked on some of his messaging, I said to this very analytical, amazing speaker who has really a perfect speech, I said, my friend, I'm not seeing any vulnerability here. You're not stepping out on that ledge.
Yeah.
I need a personal something in here, man. You need to go there. And he's like, I don't know how to do it. And I said, tell me some. I mean, I had to dig like I'm like a coach all of a sudden sitting there. And it was a really painful experience for both of us and really insightful for him. And I thought, man, I guess that's what I'm doing. I'm delivering this vulnerability thing through the promise.
That's so good. But if you called it that and not leadership, it wouldn't be. And so this is the big message from this one, I think, is not trying to sell the how, but selling the what. Like, what is the outcome of your work? And don't worry about, you can kind of soft pedal the path to getting there. You can interject it in ways. So you disarm them with your humor and your singing. Whew, and then they relax, and then you go in and you get them with some vulnerability. Yeah.
The best compliment I seem to get nowadays is that piece when they come away and I go, oh, you're crying, and they go, I was laughing so hard I was crying, and now I'm crying because I realize what I can change. Thank you for showing me how. And I've had people say that I'm a stealth philosopher. They did not see it coming. But that's what we do as speakers.
Stealth. I like that word.
When we are really dialed in with our message, we live it, we know it intrinsically, and we can deliver it with our gifts and the many arrows in our quiver. And I'm just shooting at every single thing: comedy, music, dancing, silly, whatever it takes. And the next thing I know, I've got them.
Boom.
And I can deliver something that will hit their heart. And when we hit the heart, it changes everything.
Wow. So good. And I like the word stealth. I wrote that down. That may be in the title of our podcast. We haven't named this one yet. You just have so much. There's so much here to unpack. I could stay with you for another hour. I I feel like what you just said about being vulnerable on the platform is a really, really, really big aha, especially to our left brainers. And I've worked with Steve Shapiro. I know exactly, and I've seen him speak multiple times. I know exactly what you're talking about, and good for you.
Genius.
That
Brilliant.
he's so good, and we just
Oh,
had him on the podcast. His podcast was fantastic. Um, I am so excited for you because I feel like this message. I just I just wrote a piece about Brene Brown's Netflix special and why it was so good. And I know that there are going to be people who poo-poo that, which I don't care if they do, but I want them to recognize that vulnerability pays dividends. Right? And that's why I'm so excited for you in your career, because whether or not it's going gangbusters now, it will be going gangbusters. You're in such good hands with Karen Harris, and like, I mean, it's just like the sky's the limit, really. And that's one of the things that I think people really need to recognize. Now, I said in my piece, if Brene Brown would have come to me 15 years ago and said, I want to talk to leaders about how to be more vulnerable, I would have said, okay, we're going to have to figure out how to package that up a little differently. That's not
yeah.
going to work. But I love that she proved me wrong, because she never ever did put any kind of sugarcoating on it. She just always right in. And that is so, so impressive. Don't you think that it takes a lot of brave to do what it is that you were obviously born to do?
Yeah, and the way you said that was so well done. Brene is brilliant. If your listeners haven't watched the Netflix special, I would get Netflix just because of it.
Yeah, yeah.
I've watched it now twice, and I
Me
sit and
too.
I laugh and I weep and I
Yes.
am determined to step into the arena even more, even though I feel, Jane, that I've been quite brave already.
Yes, you have been.
I do know that I have held myself back because of the fear of the comments. And the comments have hurt. When I've gone viral 3 times in different places, from writing to videos, and there's nothing more painful than going
Mm-hmm.
viral, I don't think. But when you start to listen to the people that don't matter, that's a problem, and that's what she's talking about. So if someone's critiquing me that's been there, then I'm going to listen. But if somebody has no idea what they're talking about, why do we listen? And so the power of her messaging is so congruent with what I've been trying to say properly for so long. And I hired guys like Lou Heckler as a brilliant coach, and discussed this over and over with brilliant speakers like Connie Podesta and Mark Sharonbrock and some of the leaders of the speaking world, who have said, this is the right message, stick to it.
Mm-hmm.
You need to speak more eloquently. You cannot rely just on the entertainment. Use that
Oh,
as your
that was
tool.
probably a big one, hey? It might have been a
Yep.
bit of a crutch for you in the early days, and now you're kind of, ooh, good one.
Totally, yeah. Because when you're really good at entertaining, you can
Mm-hmm.
just hang on that. And
Yeah.
I was really expecting, I should get a standing ovation after every event. I should have people laughing the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what I got as an entertainer. Now, as a speaker, I use that to open the first 5, 10 minutes. I'm not saying the next 50 are boring. I'm saying they're all of a sudden receiving insights they never expected.
Wow.
And then I sometimes take them so deep that then I have to pull them back up with some
And
music and comedy.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Start again,
yeah,
and that's what Brene Brown does so well in her special.
she does.
And that's what the great speakers really do. And we attend the Influence and other great conferences and say, wow, that's a great keynote right there.
Oh, that's so good. I want to talk to you. I just got off another podcast with Christine LaPerriere, and she calls it the bell curve of approval. This is good. The top
Wow, yeah.
20% are going to love you no matter what you do. The middle 60 are going to think you're cool, and the bottom 20, it just won't matter. And I think that when it doesn't matter what you do, it's
Right.
never gonna be enough. And that's where those negative, you've been impacted by social media, which I try to keep it pretty positive. I don't even say anything that's gonna bring it on because I just don't want that negativity in my space. But you went viral and you can't control that, right?
Right.
But I love this bell curve, and I wish I would have known it sooner because that bottom 20, I'm sorry, but I don't think I'm ever going to really make you happy. So let's just agree to say goodbye now. Cheerio. Cheerio. What do you think about that?
Right. I love that. That's very, very well done. And I was honored to be one of the keynotes for CAPS a couple of years ago in the closing spot. What a great thing! And then a couple months later, I was the speaker for Influence at NSA, and I had never delivered the promise before. I came up with it and thought I'd like my peers to see this.
Yes.
And I was receiving the Hall of Fame that night, or the next night as well.
So like big couple of days for you.
Couple of big days, yeah. And I thought if I don't deliver this right, then maybe I shouldn't receive the Hall of Fame, or I should turn it away. And I put so much pressure on myself. And you should never deliver a speech cold to your peers. That's something I learned the hard way at that event, because I came off stage and I got completely destroyed. And these were all well-meaning people trying to tell me how it could be better, this and that. And keynoting for keynoters almost killed me, as the blog post I wrote.
I remember reading that post, but I forgot that was you, Jason. And we just have to have a rule of thumb that when somebody comes down off the stage, that is not the moment to take them aside and say what they did wrong, ever, and under any circumstances. Like, just let them sit in a minute, and if they come and ask you, then fine. But other than that, forget about it. It's not your job to say.
A couple of painful things happened in between. Scott Stratton was the keynoter the next morning, so no one, not necessarily no one, but a majority of them hadn't seen him and how brilliant he is until that moment. And then all of a sudden, he's the one they're talking about, and they're telling me how bad mine was. And then I was in the youth program helping run that. So only in the little pockets of moments that I saw people did they tell me how bad I was. And then I went on stage to receive the Hall of Fame award. And it was just like this nightmare experience that should have been the pinnacle of my excitement for launching my speaking career. What's beautiful about that happening is that a guy like Scott Stratton comes to my rescue, and he's like, "Man, you were awesome. I had never seen you. That was incredible what you did. And we should have bodyguards for speakers coming off stage from now on." He became a good friend after that. And then the next thing I know, because my peers saw what I struggled through, they then became my champions to help me fix it.
Oh, good.
And here we are 3 years later, and it's finally working. I've now delivered this speech probably 150 times, and it would have been nice to have done before I got on that stage.
Wow.
But now it works, and it's working way better.
People do not land at the top of the mountain. And a lot of, and I really want people to recognize that if they have a bad day at the office, which you obviously had, and I'm so sorry that you had to go through that, Jason. I wasn't there, so I don't know, but I remember reading your post about it, and I just felt awful for you, because I know that that's the NSA nature, is to do that, and we just need to stop that. Let's just stop that.
Yeah, and NSA has been the most incredible community for me. I hated to throw it under the bus, if you will, if that's what it felt like in that article. But really, everyone had good intentions to tell me what it could have been. That's all they were trying to do. A couple of people were quite mean, but most of them were just trying to help. So try to help at the right time, not when someone just came off stage and is looking for a slap on the back instead of a kick in the face.
Yes, exactly. And simmer on it yourself, because in the moment too, when you've come off the stage, you should just kind of let it sit for a minute and yourself, even before you start seeking outside approval.
Oh
And
yeah.
I really want you all to remember the bell curve. The 20% at the top are going to love you no matter what you say. That 40% in the middle are going to think you're cool, and then there's going to be 20 at the bottom.
I
That
love that.
you will never ever please, and so you just got to let them go. Let them go. Well, my goodness, we have covered so much ground, and I am so glad that you have been so vulnerable with us today and just your beautiful self. Thank you, Jason Hewlett, for being on the show today.
So honored to be a part of it. I really admire your work, Jane. Thank you for the goodness you do. And I know that being an agent and speaker and writer and all the things that you have created and doing this podcast, these are things that you do that don't receive as much fanfare as a standing ovation at an event. So thank you from a speaker who listens and gets standing
Oh,
ovations, and I'm listening to you before I go on stage. I mean, that's a
oh.
neat thing, right?
That's so
So thank you.
nice. Thank you for sharing that with me. I really appreciate that. And I will take that as my standing ovation. Now, if people want to get in touch with you, Jason, what should they do?
Well, best is my website is jasonhewlett.com.
All right.
That's spelled Hewlett, and I have my phone number on there, and you can text me as well at 801-674-3668. I
Crazy
am
man.
completely open to do what I can to help people, and at the same time have to keep my family time
Yeah.
protected. But if I can help someone, I will, and that's part of my promise.
You're a
So.
sweet, sweet man. Thank you so much for your time today, Jason. I really, really appreciate it. And for those of you listening, please share this podcast with your friends. We feel like this is our year. We doubled, actually. We've been doubling our monthly listens, and I'm really excited about that. And I feel like yours is going to be even, it's going to take us up through the roof yet again. So thank you so much, Jason Hewlett, for being here. And with that, we will say, see you soon, wealthy speakers. Bye for now, everyone. Thanks for listening to the Wealthy Speaker Show. Please visit speakerlauncher.com for your free Wealthy Speaker audit, and visit speakerlauncher.com/podcast for show notes and many more resources to help you catapult your speaking business. See you soon, Wealthy Speakers.